Hello, everyone. Welcome to Untangled back in California, back in the United States. Hi, MZ Pool Design. You did find me, Marita. It's good to be here with you. It's really good to be here with all of you back in the Untangled world. I've taken a couple of weeks off, but we are on episode 104, and I am ready to dive deep into all of it this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, wherever you are on the planet. So, thanks for joining. Thanks for being a part of the Untangled series. Um, I started this series back in 2022. So I wanted to just bring the uncomfortable into the comfortable. I wanted to talk about the stuff that we don't like to talk about. I wanted to make the very crunchy, strange WTF aspects of the human evolution. I wanted to just make it real normal. And I wanted to talk about all the things that we go through that they're just in the human experience, and not make it some kind of spiritual, like woo woo thing, but just can we just peel back and break apart what we're going through in this evolution from a very basic human perspective, and keep it real. And so that's why I decided to do Untangled and start Untangled. And, a couple of years later, we're still doing it, and I'm really grateful for it. I'm grateful for all of you being a part of it. And, I'm always humbled. I'm always just humbled. I would say every day I am humbled by what we are going through. Um, Humbled by what we agreed to go through and experience in this lifetime, humbled by the awe of it and the mystery of it. And I was just getting off an Instagram live, and, um, somebody said something about how it's the eye of the storm, and, or they feel like they're in the eye of the storm. And I think what is, for me, one of the most profound realizations of what we're in right now is that nobody, not one person on this planet has actually ever gone through this. So we really don't know where we're going. We can get guidance from, higher dimensional consciousnesses and spirits and energies that are not on or of this planet right now. But even they haven't gone through this exact moment in this evolution that humanity is going through. And so we are all blindly walking ourselves through this. And to really hold that awareness, to really hold the the awareness that there isn't, this is not something that's been done before. This evolution that we're in this exact moment on the planet, has never been done before. Now, thousands of years ago, humanity, there was a large group of humans that were in much higher frequencies. They navigated a shift in their frequency, but they did it very differently than the way we're doing it. Very differently. We are doing it in the most intense, courageous, slow, meticulous, um, torturous at times ways, because we have to be in the eye of the storm. And we have to go through our everyday life while we also simultaneously shift perspectives, awarenesses, lenses, frequencies, all while being in the density of this world, of this planet. And so there's this vision, this visual I have of all of us having these, like, you know, uh, blindfolds on. Maybe you follow certain people, maybe you listen to certain people, maybe you read certain books, but in terms of where humanity is going and how we do this, nobody knows. There are experts in the field of certain subjects, whatever that may be, but nobody's walked through this before. And I think that's a really powerful awareness to hold, because It brings you into a surrendered, humble, courageous, empowered place. And what I mean by that is that if you don't know how this works, and I don't know how this works, and most people don't actually know how the evolution actually unfolds because it's never been done before in this way, then that doesn't that give us more of a sense of power or empowerment because we can't fuck it up because we don't even know what we're doing? Excuse my language. We can't mess it up. You know, we're all fumbling towards something that nobody has pushed through before. And there's all these layers to it. There's all these uh, pockets of awarenesses and ways of being and tools and mastery over things. But it's still the blind leading the blind. It's still walking into darkness until the light comes on, and then you look around and you say, oh my god, I can't believe this is what it's like. And then you go, then you keep going, you keep walking, and there's more darkness. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know how to do this. And then all of a sudden you walk through that darkness and the light comes on again, and you say, oh my god, holy cow, what the heck, right? And you see again, and then you keep walking through the darkness. And that's the evolution in human consciousness. It's, there should be a deep humility in this process, a deep humility. And we should be in awe on a daily basis in the midst of all of the emotions and all of the thoughts that we are peeling back and all of the behaviors that we are looking at. And I mean, just the human condition, just the human experience, um, just being human. It's crazy. One of the things, the way that I see this, I was wondering why I was so cold. My heater's no not my heater isn't on. Um, we haven't been here before, not in this way, not in this way. So, you know, thousands of years ago, humanity, there were many civilizations that were able to bring themselves into much higher states of being, but they did it through the assistance of higher dimensional beings, galactic beings, and in very physical ways. So they were able to connect, contact, and get access and teachings from higher dimensional beings. And so there was an acceleration that happened on the planet with humanity's awareness and evolution with small groups of people around the world, right? That's where the pyramids came from. That's where Machu Picchu came from. That's where a lot of the gods and goddesses in Greece learned their teachings and their practices. And so it was very hands-on. And so it was a real, it was a process that kind of sped up a lot of the evolution. But then there were these nefarious energies that came in and tore it all apart. Go read my book, The Divine Design. It talks about it. Um, and so now we find ourselves in a very similar place, except that we are not getting the same access and accessibility and acceleration like we did thousands of years ago. Now we have to do it on our own, so to speak. Um, and, you know, it's because the evolution in human consciousness um, is a process of, shifting frequency, shifting frequency, um, almost like a light switch, a dimmer. And we all can have our own ways of seeing this. I think that's what's so beautiful about being human is um, there's so many different ways to view what we're going through and so many different ways to see what we're in and um and how to navigate it and what how you choose to see it, how you choose to navigate it. Um and so the way that I am navigating this and seeing this through my own experience, because everything I do is based on my own experience, is recognizing the the difficulty of this slow meticulous evolution, the slow shifting of frequency. Thousands and thousands of years ago, the you know there was a much closer connection with higher dimensional beings. And how do I know that? Well, look at what was built back then. Look at what was written back then. Look at what was known back then. And then we find ourselves in this 2024, and you just look at how we are currently navigating it, and it's very different, right? And again, you know, we get to all hold our perspective of what this is and what we're going through and how to go through it. But from my own personal experience day to day, the I am being humbled by the fact that we are warriors right now doing a navigating a spiritual battle, that we aren't going to be saved from necessarily. We aren't going to have higher dimensional galactic beings come down and help us in the same way. Um, and so it's definitely perhaps a more courageous time to be on the planet, because it takes a lot more grit. It takes a lot more courage. It takes a lot more commitment. And it takes a lot more strength to be able to remember day in and day out without necessarily getting the validation right away. Right. And so what I mean is that every day we wake up and we do our life. And a lot of us kind of know what we're going through, but it doesn't necessarily always feel like that's what's happening. Like it's getting better, or it's getting easier, or, it can very much feel like you're running on a treadmill and it's like, when is this going to change? When is it going to get quote unquote better? When is it going to get easier? There's always these really subtle, profound shifts that are happening on a collective level energetically and on an individual level energetically. But because it can feel like it's happening slowly, it doesn't necessarily look like much is happening. It's very much like your hair growing. You look in the mirror and you're like, nothing's happening. My hair's not growing. But 6 months down the road, thank you, Kathy Ball, for that super chat. 6 months down the road, you realize, "Oh my gosh, my hair is growing," right? But in the moment that it's growing, you don't realize it's growing. And that's how this evolution is. And so every day we're like, "Nothing's happening. My hair isn't growing. I wish my hair would grow. I wish it would just grow faster. I hope my hair grows," right? Every day we're like, "What's going on here? I hope it gets better. I hope it gets easier." Um, and it is. It's just happening like a tortoise. It's happening slowly. Um, so we have to remember this. We have to remember that it's not an overnight process. It's not, um, it's the other thing. The other thing that I was recognizing, I mean, I'm always realizing these really just humbled by this, but the other thing I was realizing was, I said this yesterday in my Patreon community, you know, I think it's important that we all just take what anybody says with a grain of salt always, right? Like if it resonates, great. If it doesn't resonate, great. Nobody is the expert. Nobody knows, you know? Um, but how I see this evolution is that and especially based on how the quantum field works and how energy works, is that, um, in a quantum field, um, everything is right here. Everything's available and everything's accessible. And what I mean by that is that there is no separation between dimensional fields. So if you want to talk about the third dimension and the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension and the sixth dimension and blah, 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 it's all in one quantum field, right? It's all experienced in a now. And based on the frequency of your body, you will experience that quantum field differently. But just because you experience the quantum field differently than somebody else doesn't mean that you're also not standing in all of the dimensional fields. So, what I mean by that is that you and I are standing together on this planet, and there's multiple dimensional fields that can be experienced. And in the spiritual community, we like to separate the third dimension to the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. Thanks, Torsten. Like, I can't wait till I get to 5D, or I'm already in 5D. And once I'm in 5D, I'm never going to experience the 3D stuff, and I'm going to be in bliss and love and awe. And that's impossible. And the reason I say that's impossible is because you live in a quantum field. There is no separation. And so, this idea that the third dimension goes somewhere, or that you don't experience it, or that it's not seen or felt, that's just not possible. And so, as I'm breaking all this down, it becomes really clear to me that the evolution isn't about getting to some dimensional field, finding ourselves separate from that which we don't like in order to finally be free, or to be happy, or to be um, um, in peace or in calm, as if there is still a separation. I'm going somewhere. I'm landing somewhere. I'm going to be separate. To me, the evolution is about understanding that I am standing in all of it, everything. So you're standing in everything. Imagine this. You're standing in every emotion that could possibly be felt. You're standing in every thought that could possibly run through your mind. You're standing in every experience or opportunity that could possibly happen. You're standing in lack and abundance. You're standing in love and fear. You're standing in peace and chaos. You're standing in all of it, always, no matter what dimensional field you're in. You're always standing in all of it. And what happens in the evolution is that your physical body increases its frequency, which gives you access to who you actually are, which is a soul or an aspect of God. And when you start recognizing more and more based on the frequency of your body, okay, that you are not who you have thought yourself to be, the emotions and the thoughts, the behaviors, the programs, the trauma, then you start to break free. Then you start to feel more peace or more calm. Then you start to feel more aligned. So the evolution in human consciousness isn't about you in charge of raising your frequency in order to get to some sort of dimensional field where there's peace and love and calm and you don't ever experience any of those other things. The evolution in human consciousness is recognizing that you have never been any of this, and that you're standing in a very chaotic quantum field that has access to everything, and that everything's allowed to be here, and that nothing needs to go anywhere. So you're standing in the eye of the storm all the time, regardless of what frequency your body is shifting into. And when the body shifts into higher and higher frequencies, which is naturally what's occurring, the light turns on more and more inside of the physical form, which gives you access more and more to who you are, which is the soul, which is God. And you walk outside still playing the human character. So you still go to the post office and the bank and the grocery store, and you still look around and you listen to all the different stuff that's happening, and you hear all the chaos and all the stories and all the narratives, and that still happens. And yet your body is slowly beginning to shift into higher frequencies, giving you access, turning on the lights to who you are. And that's the evolution in human consciousness. not getting to some sort of dimensional field where all of a sudden you're going to be in love and light and bliss, and you're going to leave family members, or you're going to be separated from this, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen. And, you know, all, everything outside of you remembering who you are and creating and understanding the illusion is a distraction. It's all just the story. What's happening in this country, what's happening in that country, what's happening with this government, what's happening in Hollywood. It's all just distraction. It's all just part of the show. But the actual evolution in human consciousness, or what a lot of people call the ascension, is just the body increasing in frequency in order to give the human persona a perspective and an awareness of who they actually are, which is a soul inside the body, or an aspect of God inside a body, playing a human character, standing in a quantum field where everything is possible, where you will always feel everything, always. Once you are once you recognize you're in a quantum field, once you recognize that fear is going to always be there, once you recognize anger is always available, once you recognize that jealousy is an experience that happens on the planet, once you realize that separation is here, once you realize that greed is here, once you realize that lack is here, once you realize these things are in this dimensional field that your physical body is standing in and will always stand in, because it's a quantum field. Okay. So even if it's vibrating in some other dimension, you are still standing in a third dimension as well. And so there becomes a responsibility, a humility, and a responsibility to understanding, and also a maturity, in my opinion, that there isn't any right or wrong, good or bad, that we have to feel or experience, that we become so humble by what we're in that all of it gets to be here and all of it gets to be experienced. And it's just a matter of you understanding or remembering, right, what it actually is that we're going through. And it requires massive amounts of um, rebirth and death of the illusion of who we think we are. A rebirth and a death, a rebirth and a death. And these deaths that we're having are deaths to the illusion of who we think we are, over and over. And who we think we are is the programming and the trauma and the systems that have been put in place on this planet, telling us who we are and how to be successful and how to be loved and how to be nurtured and how to raise a child and how to be a good daughter and a good son. And all of these are systems that have been put in place, that are deep, deep programs that are ingrained in our computer system, which is the mind, right? And so, and there's massive amounts of trauma that we have all encountered. And this trauma in our past has been has programmed our computer, the mind, which is the thought, which creates our behavior, right? It stimulates emotions. It's the lens we use. And so if you start really recognizing what's happening right now, we are deprogramming the computer in our mind. And that computer in the mind is what tells us who we are, right? And how we do things. And it's a massive kind of shit show right now in terms of um, being broken apart and broken down. A lot of us, not all of us. Again, I think it's important to remember that this evolution it's everybody is experiencing it differently, and everybody gets to experience it differently. And so we're all experiencing it in different levels, in different ways. Um, and it's not like a one straight road that you're on, and it's like this is just what it's going to feel like, and we all should be feeling it this way. Um, it's one big kind of tornado that we're all swirling in, and some of us are in one part of the world, and some of us are in another part of the world. Um, Going through our own, swirling around in the same tornado. We're all in the same storm. Wherever you are on the planet, you're in the same storm, which means the same evolutionary shift in consciousness. It's just a matter of how you're experiencing it based on where you live, what your upbringing was, um, how much trauma you had, what your role here is, in terms of your purpose and your mission, and what your soul carved out for you to experience. I mean, there's so many. Um, there's so much that it's interesting because it's a complicated process of being here right now, but it's also so simple. It's so simple. Um, and I think one of the things that humanity is going to start to realize in this evolution, at least I feel this way. I could be very wrong. By the way, I'm always humbled by the knowingness that I don't know anything, right? I just know what I know based on what I know and my experience, but all of it can be blown up in one moment, right? Nothing. I hold nothing as absolute. Um, but you know, it's the evolution that we're going through. Um, that we all agreed to. We all agreed to come down and be a part of this. Um, I just jumped thoughts for a second, but I just don't know anything that's more important than remembering this on a daily basis. There's no quick fix. There's no, okay, just do dot 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 and you'll be fine. Um, you know, read these books and your pain will go away, or um, I just don't think we remember how courageous it is for us to be down here as souls in human bodies. The density of this physical planet makes it almost impossible for us to stay in that remembrance of who we are and why we're here. And I think that's one of the greatest. Um, that's one of the reasons why you are such a miracle, and you're such a badass, is because as difficult as it is for you to actually truly remember who you are as soul in a human body, navigating an evolutionary shift in human consciousness that feels like, a tortoise walking across the road. Um, as hard as that is to remember, it's what you're doing, it's what you're in. And you can't get out of the human experience. You can't get out of, um, you can't escape how this goes. You can't change it, meaning you're not in charge of the natural process of evolution. It's like when your hair grows a certain way, right? And you really want it to grow faster, right? But you can't. It grows the way it grows, and there can be so much frustration and so much anger and rage and so much anxiety and stress because all you want is just, please, I just want my hair, or your body is a certain way. Okay, it just is a certain way, and you really just wish that you could be thinner, right? You really wish that you could have a different body type. And it's like, but you can't. This is the natural way in which your body is. And how do you navigate that? How do you find peace in that? You accept it. You surrender into what is, right? And so many of us in this evolutionary process will begin to recognize, wow, there's nowhere to go. There truly is nowhere to go. There is just this deep, deep humility in understanding what we are in, and that we cannot change what we are in. Meaning, the process of evolution is a natural process. It's going to break down the way it's going to break down. It's going to unravel the way it's going to unravel. And the more that we try to control how this happens, it has to be like this or it needs to be like this. This should be happening, this shouldn't be happening. The more we try to control this process of how we want it to go, the more we will be in suffering. And this to me is one of the most difficult and challenging parts of evolution, of ascension, as whatever word you want to call it, is that we have to let go of the way in which we think it's supposed to go. And think about how difficult that is. It's challenging because you lose your it's there can be this feeling of I'm going to lose hope then. I have to keep being positive, right? I have to keep thinking that I'm going to be finding myself in some greater place or whatever that is. And it's not about positive thinking or keeping focus on a positive timeline or anything like that. It's beyond that. It's way beyond that because that's still separation, right? It's recognizing that you came onto the planet at this time to be in this massive quantum, dualistic, polarized field that's going to convince you, right, that you need to get out of it, that you need to fix it, that you need to separate from it in order to remember who you are. And what you're doing here is the opposite. You are recognizing that nothing needs to shift or change. Nothing needs to become something else. I don't need to separate from anything. I am learning how to be in this and be in all of it, experience all of it as both a human persona and soul or God in form, both perspectives, right? And throwing your hands up in the air saying, "Holy cow, this is nuts." And the more that I believe, the more that we navigate this evolutionary shift in consciousness, the more we're going to realize we are not in control. The number one most difficult thing for humanity to actually surrender into is that they're actually not in control. The hardest thing we'll ever do. And the reason this is because the soul that you are does not live in control. The soul lives in knowingness, in absolute trust in what is. It understands that life itself, as a vibration of God essence, of all that ever is, was, and will be, has it, is supporting it. That life is not out to get it. Soul understands this. Human persona, human Lori, does not understand that. Human Lori has been born into a world that she never understood, that she was programmed into, that she felt out of control in from the moment she was born. And she was programmed and raised on a planet where she needed to be in control in order to feel okay. And so that's how we live. We live in a state of control. I'm going to create this. I'm going to create this. I'm going to now do this. I'm going to now do this. It's free will versus divine will, right? And one of the greatest parts about being on the planet is free will. Hi, Mike. It's good to see you. Um, One of the greatest parts about being on this planet is that we have free will, which means we get to choose. What do I want to do? Where do I want to live? Who do I want to marry? Do I want kids? Do I not? A lot of us have that ability. A lot of humans don't have that. A lot of people on this planet in different countries do not have that freedom, right? And so their free will is diminished. But there is still free will on this planet where we still get to choose. But divine will is what we're shifting into. Divine will is God's will. And that will is not what is in a state of control. It's in a state of flow, of deep, deep, deep understanding of how an energetic field works. And there is nothing easy about recognizing this in the most dense physical reality that spirit can be in, consciousness can be in. You cannot be in any lower of a frequency or a dimension and still have choice. You move down into a second dimensional field and you no longer have a mind and you no longer have choice. right? So the third dimension is the lowest dimension you could get to where you can still access choice. You can still create. Okay. You can still have awareness in that way. But you are so dense in physicality that it's almost impossible to remember who you are simultaneously. And so it's quite a miraculous feat that we are in a third dimensional field navigating an awakening where we are literally crawling or peeling ourselves out of density, fog, every moment of the day in order to remember who we have always been without the need for anything in the external world to change. And so if you look at your life right now, whether you're just nailing it and everything is freaking incredible, or whether it's really challenging right now, right? Regardless, or anywhere in between, no matter where you're at, what you're experiencing, first of all, it's always going to be moving. It's always going to be shifting. There's always movement. Second, everything that you're in, whether it's a beautiful moment or a challenging moment, everything is giving you an opportunity to realize that it's not you. Even in your most blissful, moments where you're just like, God, this is amazing and incredible and I love life, it's still not who you are. It's still just the experience that soul is having. And if you think about how you navigate really incredible moments, you're in a free fall, you're in a flow state, you're just letting it happen, right? You're not trying to figure anything out. You're not trying to do it or change it. You're not trying to understand it. When you're really happy, when things are going really well in your life, you're in a flow state. You don't realize you're in the flow state, but you're in a flow state. And that state that you're in when you're really happy, when things are going really well, when you're not worried or stressed, that's your natural state. Meaning that flow state where you're just letting things be the way they are and you're just in it. That's your natural state of how you're designed to be in everything. Now think about how difficult that is. I mean, that's uh, uh, think about that. Because then you flip the coin, right? You start thinking about moments where you've been really depressed or really stressed or very anxious or heartbroken or scared or confused. And you're designed to go through those moments in the same state of flow as when you're in the happy go lucky, everything's great moments. There's no difference. That's where we're going in our evolution. It's profound to me that this is where we're going in our evolution, and there are millions of people that would say that's not true. There are millions of people that will argue with me and say the evolution is about no longer feeling these things, that when your body shifts into these higher frequencies, you won't experience this stuff anymore. I think that's the most dangerous perspective to have. Because then there is an expectation or an idea that these things that you don't ever want to experience can't be experienced anymore if I'm moving through an evolution and shifting my frequency into into higher if the body's moving into higher frequencies, I shouldn't experience these things anymore. That's dangerous because then you are separating yourself from what just naturally is, and it's also a very disempowered state because if you're standing in a room, right, full of all emotion, and it's all the emotion is swirling around and you're saying, "That's great. I'm so glad all these different emotions are swirling around. But when I perfect myself, these emotions over here are never going to touch me, but these emotions over here can touch me. I can experience these emotions, but I cannot experience these emotions anymore. I just won't." It's like, well, you're not actually in control of that. It's called quantum field. You have no control over what comes and goes. None. right? So what you have control over is what you believe to be you. If you know that none of it's you, what does it matter what you experience because it just moves through you and it's not you? The reason we still have this separation of, "Oh my gosh, eventually I'm gonna get to some place where I'm no longer gonna feel these certain things," that's the ego. That's the ego still separating because it still believes that it's emotion. It still believes, it still identifies with, if I experience this emotion, it means dot, dot, dot. And if I experience this thought, it means dot, dot, dot. We're still identifying deeply with thought, behavior, and emotion, which makes sense to me because we still are very deeply, deeply programmed. We still have a huge amount of trauma that is very subconscious, very unconscious in the mind that creates the illusion of who we are. But as soon as we start to recognize over and over, which is not easy, but it's what's happening. As soon as we start recognizing that we're standing in a room full of trauma and behaviors and emotions and in thoughts, and that this room has created our reality all day, every day for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. And we're starting to come online and turn on and say, holy shit, I have been in this experience as the belief that I am this human and I'm really just this amazing, incredible soul or God that's having this experience and I've never been any of it, then none of it needs to go anywhere. The evolution in human consciousness is recognizing that there is no separation between anything, including dimensional fields. And that is the most empowered place that we could possibly be. All masters that were on this planet that were able to master this human experience, meaning they were able to be in the human experience as human and soul, never needed to get rid of anything or go anywhere. In fact, many of them immersed themselves in the darkest places. They immersed themselves in heaviness. They allowed themselves to be in all of it, because they were able to master the fact that they were none of it. And they didn't need it to go anywhere. They didn't need to say, oh, I never need to experience these emotions. I better not have these emotions. I better not have these thoughts. Once I get to this elevated state, I'm never going to experience fear or pain. They didn't do any of that. They were focused on, concentrating on, committed to remembering who they were. We're all focused on, I don't want to feel this and I'm going to have to feel this and I want to make sure I move my frequency to this, and we're all concerned about the external specifics of everything. We're getting lost in the details of these stories and narratives about what we're doing here. And quite simply what we're doing here is just remembering who we are in the midst of everything, that everything gets to be here. And that's actually that's the fast track through this. It's just the hardest. The fast track through is the hardest track. It's challenging because you have to have such a deep, 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 deep trust, and that you have to be okay with things being how they are. And that is we don't like that as humans. We want a quick fix. We just do. We want to feel better. And we don't want to not feel good. And so once I feel better, I don't want to go back to not feeling good. We don't like the uncomfortable. We don't like the heaviness. We don't like any of that stuff. But the way that it's unfortunate, but it's also fortunate, because the way that we break free, the way that we do this, is that we have to be shown who we think we are, which means that we have to be put in positions where we don't want to be in them, so that we can realize that we're trying to run from things because we believe that it's who we are. And so many of us are continuing to find ourselves in experiences that literally are just destroying us. I don't want to be in this anymore. Why am I continuing to be in this? What is this about? And it's the greatest opportunity, as challenging as that is. It's an opportunity that you're giving yourself to recognize how you still identify, right? We are still identifying ourselves with whatever that story is around that experience. That I have to be afraid of something, or I don't believe that I'm worthy enough for this, or, um, you know, Especially if you are finding yourselves in experiences where it's the same pattern, same belief, the same fear. Thank you, Lori, for that super chat. Um, when you're just fine, it's oh my God, that's why this is so humbling. It's and then you throw on that we're in okay, so forget about everything I just said the last 45 minutes, okay? Then you throw into the picture the spiritual battle that we're in, the energetic spiritual battle we're in. And then it just throws a wrench in all of it. Okay. So it's like, the fire is burning and now we just ignite it even more with like, the fire burning stuff, whatever that's called, we just ignite it even more. So the spiritual battle that we're facing right now is, having to remain in a clear, aligned state inside the body over and over again while everything around us is trying to pull us out, including energies that are infiltrating in every possible way. And so then it just throws, an extra layer of you know, gymnastics into this. It's hard enough standing in all of it, realizing you're none of it, learning how to, um, be in it and realizing, shit, it's not going anywhere. This isn't about changing the external world and finding myself in some blissful heaven on earth state. We're going to realize this more and more. That old story is going to go away because it's just the quantum field. But then you throw in, oh, and by the way, as you guys continue to shift into higher and higher frequencies, i.e., the body shifting, um, there's going to be an intense rattling of energies around you that are going to try to do everything it can to pull you out of your body, which is where soul is, which is where God is. It's going to do everything it can to pull you out of alignment. It's going to do everything it can to confuse you. It's going to do everything it can to rattle you, to create anxiety in you. The confusion is off the charts right now. Why do you think there's AI? It's a beautiful tool to confuse people. I mean, you don't even know if this is a real person or a computer. You don't know, like things are being done and created. You don't know if it's if it's real or if it's fake. So you're now you're. I mean, the amount of confusion that's on the planet is 10 times what it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times. Confusion is off the charts. Confusion is so dangerous because what confusion does is it keeps you in a state of freeze. You're frozen, right? And so you don't know what to do. You don't know where to go. You don't know what's up, what's down. You don't know what's real, what's not real. You don't know what's yours, what's somebody else's. And so confusion is it's so uncomfortable. But it is part of the spiritual battle. The more confused a human is, the more disempowered a human is. And the more disempowered a human is, the more disconnected they are from who they are, soul. And so what you want to remember on this journey right now that we're in is that your job, one of your jobs right now is to stay as aligned as you possibly can with you, soul. One of the ways that you can do that is just you're constantly saying to yourself, I am soul. You're constantly trying to bring yourself, your awareness back here. So your breath does it, right? Your breath brings you right back here. Walking barefoot brings you right back here. It's not these like complicated things that you have to do that bring you back to you, right? It's not. It's as simple as breathing. It's as simple as walking barefoot. It's as simple as sitting quietly for 5 minutes. It's as simple as saying, I am soul. It's, it's really, really necessary right now. Very, very simple things that can make profound shifts in this, spiritual battle that we're in, which is that you're gonna find yourself, I mean, the amount of distraction is insane, and it's really hard to wrap our heads around the idea that there are these energies on the planet that are trying to stop the human collective from evolving, but that's exactly what's happening. And so, you don't want to focus on that all day long, but you want to have the awareness of that so that you can be a badass, and so that when you do find yourself in moments where you feel like you're being infiltrated or where you feel like the enemy is after you, you have that awareness. And you can say, holy shit, this isn't about just love and light and positive thinking. I'm in a freaking battle right now. The enemy's out to get my freaking mind. Right. There are things happening that I have to be humble enough to say, okay, you know what, this is happening. I'm going to show up with my battle gear on, and I'm going to fight this. And fight this means I'm going to demand that I stay in who I am. I'm going to demand that I bring myself back to my body. I'm going to demand that I remind myself of who I am. I'm going to rebuke any infiltration within my house, within my family, within my friends, within my own body. Right? You rebuke it. You command and demand it out of you. This is where we're at on a planetary level. It's next level, on top of what we're just naturally doing through the evolutionary process. It's it's, you know, it's a doozy. It's a doozy. So bravo to you. Bravo for showing up. Bravo for waking up every day. You know, give yourself a pat on the back because you're awake. Your eyes are open. I'm not talking about, "Oh, I'm awake to everything and other people are asleep." No, no, no. Mm-mm. I don't play in that. I'm saying you actually are waking, your eyes are awake, and you're showing up every day. You're getting out of bed every day. You're feeling everything. You're recognizing your thoughts more and more. You're going crazy, you're confused, you're trying to figure things out, you don't know what you're supposed to do, you don't know why you're still in this, you're living, you're learning how to unpeel or peel back, you're learning how to be in this from such a conscious, aware state that it's almost painful at times, but this is the process. This is how you come back to who you have always been, you know? Um, it's interesting, I'm writing this book about the God particle, um, which I know very little about, but I'm writing about it. And there's these levels of teachings around it. And um, there's these 12 levels of teaching. What I find so fascinating about the God particle, or at least what I'm learning from these beings called the ancient ones that are bringing through the information, um, is that, um, sorry, my mind just went somewhere else. That there is this, balancing that we're gonna find ourselves in where it is an experience of beingness, so knowing that you are this essence of God, or soul, or both, and practicing how to be that in this human experience. And so it's like, it's like we're stepping into a phase in this evolution where we are going to be required to feel who we are as soul and God inside us, while we also have to, at the same time, simultaneously, we have to study how to do this daily. We have to practice. And so in this book I'm writing, they're giving me these 12 levels of study. So the first, I've only been given 3, And I've been given them through just experience and also just this is just when they're giving them to me. The first one is awareness. The number one the number one kind of level of really embodying soul and God is awareness. There has to be awareness, and awareness expands over and over again in terms of your experience of awareness. Awareness just gets bigger and bigger. There has to be awareness. The second one is um, a deep understanding of thought and emotion. So there has to be an awareness first, then there has to be an understanding of what thought and emotion actually is, because thought and emotion is what controls the human. Thought and emotion is what creates all the trauma. Thought and emotion is what separates us. Thought and emotion is what creates the illusion. Thought and emotion is everything. And so, really starting to understand thought and emotion. Again, going back to what I was saying earlier, being able to understand that you are not thought or emotion is everything. It's the biggest breakthrough you could possibly have. You will become absolutely free when you realize you're not thought or emotion. And that statement in and of itself seems very kind of like, "Oh, yeah, of course." But, like, when you actually live, right? I'm not living that way yet, but when we actually live in the beingness and knowingness that we are not a thought or not an emotion, we will be completely free. And then the third one is, divine will versus free will. Um, and really understanding what that means, really breaking down free will and breaking down divine will. Um, anyway, I share all of this with you guys because I believe that this is the next phase of the human evolution is understanding how to feel the beingness of who we are while we simultaneously live in this world. And we live in the emotions and in the behaviors and in the thoughts and in that trauma. And we live in that. And so there's these phases or levels of teachings that we have to practice. I think that's what's so humbling about the human experience as well is that, wow, it's not just an overnight thing. That's why I do not believe in this idea that some big solar flash is going to happen and we're just going to boom instantaneously be in this love and light field where you're just going to be bliss and you're going to be this 5D human. I don't believe that. It's a process. It's a slow evolutionary process of awakening, of remembering. And the density that we're in requires practice. That's what remembrance is. Think of how hard it is for you to remember that you're soul 20 minutes from now, or an hour from now, or 6 days from now. You right? And think of how much we don't want it to be like that. We would like it to be one instant. We would love it to be like, just take it away from me now. Just bring me into that blissful state. Bring me into that enlightened state. Bring just like that. Jesus studied for 30 years and he taught for 3. He studied for 30 years and taught for 3 years. Well, maybe he studied for 24 years. The gods and goddesses in Greece studied for years and years and years. This idea that we are just gonna, somehow find ourselves in, in this place, it's just not real. We have to practice. We have to practice every day. We have to remember 24/7. We have to feel, and we have to get real humble. And it's not a popular, it's not necessarily a popular idea. We don't like it. But unless we start to get real honest with what we're doing and what we're in, we're gonna keep kind of, circling what's being asked of us. We'll keep going around because we want it to be easy. We want it to be simple. We want it well, it is simple, but we want it to feel good. We wanna get out of what we don't like. We want, and the if you're lucky enough to be pummeled into, deep, deep darkness, you shift like this, right? You just if you're pummeled into like, a dark night of the soul that just takes you overnight, you will have, much quicker awakenings, openings, awarenesses. And then they happen again, and then that happens again, and then it happens again. And eventually they're not as intense because the awareness stays aware. The awareness stays awake, and then you start to get more and more used to what you're experiencing. You start to get more and more relaxed into it. Um, anyway, it's 10 o'clock. So there we go. Thanks for being here, you guys. If you liked this video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'm going to be back here doing these live untangleds every Tuesday at 9 a.m. for a while till I find myself back in Kenya. I went to this lake. I'll really quickly share. I went to this lake when I was in Kenya, Lake Nakuru, and that's all I can think about. I just want to get back to that lake and write. The most activating lake I've ever been to. If you ever go to Kenya, you absolutely must go to Lake Nakuru. It's about 3 hours, 3.5 hours from Nairobi. Um, do yourself a favor. If you are going on the safari with me in June or in February, we're going. If you are going to join our retreat in June, we are going to Lake Nakuru. By the way, we are opening registration for our June retreat. We're opening it in the beginning of November. And so if you want to join or want to at least get information on it, join the wait list. We're only opening it to the wait list. So yeah, it's going to be really, it's going to be incredible. But anyway, this Lake Nakuru is where the ancient ones kind of hunker down energetically. They are in this lake, and when I sit there, man, holy cow, the book just comes through like nobody's business. It's like I'm sitting with these ancient Lake Nakuru, 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 Nakuru. Um, the ancient ones are the ones that are helping me write this book. And when I sit this lake, oh my God, they just come through, and I'm just right, just and I miss them. I miss the energy. I miss connecting with them. I miss sitting with them. It's like all I want to do is go back to that lake and sit for weeks and just write this book. And I'm back here in California trying to figure out how I can afford it and how I can do it. Because it's the only thing that's calling me right now is to go back to that lake and finish this book. I don't know why I'm sharing that with you guys, but I am. And if you're coming with me in February, we're going to the lake. I cannot wait. If you come with me in June, I'll take you to the lake. Yeah, it's something special. Um, really something special. I've gone to, a lot of activating sites and had some pretty profound moments. This is a whole different level, a whole different level. If you joined us in Soul Activation last Sunday, maybe you felt the energies of them. But yeah, it feels good to have clarity, right? Like, oh, this is what feels right, or oh, this feels like what I want to do. I've experienced so much confusion in my life, and so much we all have, right? What do I do? Where do I go? Is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? My God, I mean, I live in that place all the time. I surrender to that place, I allow that place to be when I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where to go. I don't know what direction to take with my business. I don't know. I live in that. I allow it because I know that in that place, that's where creation begins. You can't fight it. And so when I feel this kind of clarity, I'm so appreciative of it. I'm so grateful for the clarity when I have it. And like anything, I never seek to keep anything. So if I have clarity right now, I just have clarity until clarity's gone. And then if confusion comes, I have confusion until confusion is gone. So I never have the belief or attachment that whatever I'm experiencing needs to stay. I never have the belief or attachment that if I'm in happiness, I hope happiness stays. If I'm in joy, I hope joy stays. Nothing stays. And so I don't ever grab for anything to stay. I'm humbled by what's here now in gratitude until it leaves and something else arises. And whatever else arises is okay because that too will leave. Everything passes. This is how I live my life, and I believe that the more that we all can do this, the more empowered we become on this planet, the more aligned with soul we become, truly. And so I encourage you today and every day to really start to practice that. Nothing's permanent, nothing stays. Things don't have to feel good and they can be very painful or they can be very fun and exciting. Either way, they pass. And if you hold on to this idea that it needs to stay, you're going to be very disappointed by the way the quantum field works, which is that everything is in motion. And if everything's in motion, nothing can stay. If you're in a constant state of flow, nothing can stay. The only thing that is absolute, right? That soul is constantly experiencing is the flow state with calm, with like a sense of calm, right? Those are absolutes. The flow state is a state of calm once you realize how to be in flow. But we're learning how to be in flow. And so that flow state means everything comes and goes. And that calm state means that whatever I'm in, I'm okay. I'm safe to be in whatever it is, right? I'm safe to be in whatever I'm in, even though I don't feel that way. You're learning that. Those are our natural states. God itself as divinity and soul as you understand that. And so that's why it has its hands up on the roller coaster saying, what else? Let's go. And you as the person playing this character, the character is like, holy shit, I can't do this. I can't go through this. I need to have clarity. I need to have calm. I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to have heartache again. I don't want to be in disappointment. I don't want to feel these things. And so that's where awareness comes in. The power of awareness is to recognize and to see what you're in and to give yourself compassion for how you're seeing it, how you're experiencing it, letting it be okay. If you're angry about what you're in, let that be okay. If you're scared because you're in something that you don't want, let that be okay. If you have a lot of anxiety over something, just have awareness and let it be okay. It passes. It all passes. The reason things stay is because you're grabbing it and you're making it wrong. So there's a difference between grabbing something and making it wrong and just simply having the pure expression of it, which is, I hate this. This sucks. I don't want this. This is so uncomfortable. But you're feeling it in movement as opposed to, this cannot be here. Why is this here? This should not be here. And you're grabbing it. And then it anchors in. And then it's this self-fulfilling prophecy of you convincing yourself, see, this doesn't go anywhere. There is no flow. This is constantly here because you're grabbing it and you're trying to control it. The hardest thing we can possibly do and the most courageous thing we could possibly do is just to be in what we're in all of its authentic expression, like the purest expression of it. So the rawness of it, like you are just, ugh, but it passes a lot faster. Okay, I got to get going. If you want to get on the waiting list, I will leave it down below. I'll leave the waiting list, the link to the waiting list right down below as soon as we get off. And you just enter your name in the waiting list. I really encourage you guys, if there's any part of you that wants to join me in Kenya, if there's a part of your soul that says abso-freaking-lutely yes, um, get on the waiting list. It's every part of my being just wants to bring people to Kenya, and although I think I know why, I also don't know why. I don't know why my whole soul is, um is feeling this at this point, but, it does. It's not going away. So, it is what it is. I love you guys. Thank you for being a part of Untangled and joining me. I will see you next Tuesday at 9 a.m. for Untangled episode 105. Um Be gentle with yourself. Pass this video on to anybody. Please pass this video on if you know anyone that is curious, questioning, struggling, just needs the remembrance. All we need is to hear these words, and then for at least 5 minutes, we drop into the remembrance again. Then we go back out into the world. Um, well, I love you. I'll see you next Tuesday, and be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with others. Mwah.